And then now we got something going. Check. Check. Test. Check. Check. Test. Check. Test. This is about nominal level.
About where it's going to be? I'm going to turn it up a little.
Turning it up.
Nice,
turning it up. Up.
Nice
up.
Alright,
up and up and up and up. And we are talking to the world through the cone. Hello, world. We're talking to you through the cone because it's such great emerging technology. Do you want me to send you more, or are you gonna do it there?
I'm gonna do it here. 2 whole days. I was over here one day. It's not mine. I'm just helping, man.
He's helping and he's a fixin'. Helping and fixin'. Getting it dialed in just right.
So we need to order new powers. One of these right here. Let me show you. One of these. This is the amp. And notice all this right here? That should just have a regular plug. Because our issue is probably this thing right here. Because who knows what milliamps is sending and all that. So.
What is the end of that? What is that usually? What's the power? What's the connection?
Just a regular plug-in. Because all this stuff right here is built into this. So it's just, it would just have the regular plug-in coming from this. Because this is your actual amp. And it's a 502. This is a 202, you need a 502 because I did all the research on it. So
502.
Yep, just pop it in. 502 AC amp. Yeah. And then that'll make everything so much easier. Talk to me, young man.
All right. We're talking to you on the 502. And we're talking and we're trying to get something that everyone's going to like.
Can you send me a little more?
Yeah.
I know I'm too high.
That's about 6 dB more.
Okay, yell at me now.
I'm yelling.
Crushed it. Talk normal.
Talking normal.
Give me just a little bit more.
All right. So we are here and it's the last day and we're all excited.
It's too much.
Boy, it's like we need a limiter on this, feeding this
It
thing.
is. That's what's happening. More of a gate than a limiter.
Ah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we don't have a limiter gate, but nonetheless, we're going to dial it in. Just make it happy. Make it happy is what we need to do. Find that sweet spot. We need to find a sweet spot with the level going in and the level driving the actual speaker unit from that little amplifier. We're hearing it.
That's going to be as best as we
Okay,
can go.
so if they get loud, it'll crush it momentarily.
Momentarily, then it'll pop back in. So
Okay.
if you can just maybe
Ja
give
ba ba
that
ba da.
instruction, try to stay at conversation level to our host and our, and it's really hard to do that because they get excited about
Right.
the product. And
But when it crushes, it recovers how quickly?
2 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a pretty quick recovery.
All right.
Okay. Where do you order it from?
All right.
It would be the,
Okay,
yes, it would
so,
be the manufacturer sound.
You can. And you see over here, this is the output. Green, so you are sending output. But now, this thing, yellow and red, click it. Okay, red means it's always on, even when you switch to another camera. Okay. Now, what we want, because we have two cameras, but this one has the good audio in it. Camera 1 does. So we want to turn camera 2 off. That's what we want. And we want that off, which is the speaker icon. Click it. If it's on, it means you hear both of them together. Because essentially it's a mixer too. Okay, so this thing is monitored. So what that does is it sends that output to the headphone out jack of your computer. So that even if it's not on, like let's say this is off. Okay, turn it on. There. Okay, you see it there. Turn the monitor off. Okay, so now we shouldn't be hearing anything. Check, check, check. You don't hear anything, right? Check, check, check. Okay, so I'm going to show you what happened the other day. What happened? Camera 2 was working on yellow. This is what was happening. See camera 1. Okay, yeah. And then we switch to 2. Okay, so you see how the yellow switches?
Yeah.
And camera 2 was all the way off, actually. When we're on camera 1 on the close-up,
Yeah.
you hear here, and then we switch to camera we monitor here. Is the only point we monitor.
All right. And then you make that change Monday. Has that been the way you've been doing it every Monday?
Well, this is the way I start, but somehow with playing the media back, and
Does
so
it do it all the time? I mean,
well, I'll tell you what happens when we go to when they're done. I fade to black.
yeah.
Right? And then I turn this channel off, and then I just to make sure make sure that's off in the.
I get to travel all over for work, and when I see an opportunity for some me time, I grab it. Like next week, I'm going to LA for a conference Wednesday through Friday, but Saturday's mine. I'm going to use TripSource to book my hotel near the convention center and the beach, so I can catch some tasty waves after the conference. TripSource lets me find and book a hotel that makes me and my company happy. I can filter my search by neighborhood or amenities that are important to me, and it gives me directions right to the hotel.
Morning, everybody. Martin Cowan, Editorial Director for tNews, and welcome to day 3 of tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. Starting proceedings today, I've got David Holmes, or David Holmes?
Hi, Dave.
Dave,
Yeah.
we're informal here. Dave Holmes, who's the Chief Commercial Officer for UATP, which in the broadest sense is a payments provider, payments business. Maybe just explain before we get into the questions exactly what UATP is.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you, Martin. UATP is a closed-loop payment network owned and operated by the world's leading airlines. The difference between UATP and other forms of payment is that we have technology that is integrated directly into the airline industry. And by virtue of that, it allows us to capture enhanced data elements, level 3 data, which is essentially ticket level information on all transactions at all points of sale, regardless of geography. And so for travel managers around the world, the thousands of them that actually rely on UATP, it allows them to build processes around that for reconciliation. From a broader statistics perspective, we process 14 billion in air travel globally. We also have an alternative payment processing unit, which also does several billion as well.
Okay, so you were established, as I understand it, 83 years ago by American Airlines. So you've traditionally always been quite close to the airline community. But I know recently you've sort of transitioned, and now you're working more closely with travel managers and travel agencies and the sort of the GBTA constituents, the travel management companies. So I mean, what do you do with travel management companies that maybe you weren't doing 5-10 years ago?
Well, just this year we launched a program that allows travel agencies in the United States market to actually become issuers of UATP. And this is a first in the history of the company, and it allows travel agencies to have a more direct relationship with their clients, provides them all of the enhancements of the data that UATP can provide, which I just discussed earlier. But it also allows travel agencies to monetize an existing business process with their preferred clients. And there are a lot of benefits that come about UATP issuance for the industry in general, in that it will be a lower cost form of payment for all of our airline partners to accept and process as well.
Okay, so it's a lower cost of payment from the travel manager through to the airline?
It is, because on average, UATP transactions, even issued by the TMC, accepted by the airline, will be on average about 100 basis points less expensive than traditional forms of payment. So there's a tremendous opportunity for overall savings to the airline industry as a whole.
Okay, so again, sort of traditionally with airlines, traditionally based in the US, but I know that you've done some interesting work outside of your core North American market. So I mean, I know sort of the Ryanair deal I know that you're quite excited about, so maybe just explain what that is. And
sure, so we have a network of over 290 airlines that accept UATP as payment. But one of the things that we explored about 5 years ago was the need for us to become more aligned with some of the low-cost carriers around the world that were starting to refine their business models to become more attractive to corporate travel buyers. As a result of that, we identified a handful of airlines that we needed to take an aggressive approach to recruit. Ryanair, as you can imagine, bubbled up to the top of any list, and so we are happy to announce that as of this year, UATP is accepted at all Ryanair points of sale for all Ryanair transactions throughout Europe, and they're going to be a great merchant partner of ours.
Okay, that's really good. I mean, Ryanair is such a major player in Europe.
Absolutely.
It's huge. So you mentioned earlier stuff that you do with alternative forms of payments, and again on tNews, because we've got a global readership and we like to look at we look at China and India and Latin America where possible. So I'm just wondering, from a sort of global perspective, what's really one of the many things that's interested about a global thing is the alternative forms of payments, and how established forms of payments in North America and Western Europe just don't blip the radar in China or India. So I'm just wondering how a business such as UATP approaches alternative forms of payments on a sort of global level.
So first off, maybe I can just talk a little bit about the genesis of that program. And so about 10 years ago, some of the emerging alternative payment solutions out there started to identify the airline industry as a major merchant-based opportunity for them. The challenge, obviously, with connecting into airlines is legacy infrastructure in many instances, especially 10 years airline from a back office perspective to process a alternative form of payment, because it just simply did not look like a credit card in many instances, something which any airline can obviously process today. So our technology actually takes a alternative payment transaction, translates it from a single-use card perspective into a UATP account, which then allows the airline to process that as they normally would. And so that business has grown tremendously. We have alternative payment partnerships in place with many solutions out there. But as you can imagine, some of the challenges that exist with that are now with the proliferation of of alternative payments is really making sure that airlines understand how to prioritize the relevant forms of payment in the relevant markets. And so that kind of comes down to some of the analysis that we do on the front end when we're having strategic discussions with our airline partners about what they are looking to deploy. And it's a conversation about what their international point of sale objectives are. What are they trying to do from a revenue targeting perspective? And that does lead to some really insightful recommendations on our part to the airlines about how to prioritize those alternative payment
and
solutions.
that sort of then loops back into what you talked earlier about sort of like the data analysis that you can do on the front end. So as well as the payment piece of what you do, there's also a sort of data analysis and a sort of consultancy as it appears. Okay.
Exactly right.
So I mean, when you look at sort of like on a global scale, is it sort of China, India, Latin America? I mean, where are the priorities, or where are the opportunities for a business?
So for us, China is a unique market for UATP in that it's one of the markets where we are actually the dominant player. We are the leader for many from a corporate travel payment perspective in China. We have a merchant base of over 23 airlines that accept UATP, and that's far and above most other payment networks that are out there. So for any travel manager that is looking to get travelers to those secondary or tertiary cities, really it is UATP as a form of payment that's going to be the preferred option there. We also have a base of 5 active airline issuers in the China market. So again, our position is extremely strong in China. But from an alternative payment perspective, we do have partnerships in place that allow us to deploy Alipay, WeChat Pay, through a recent partnership with a company called CellPoint Mobile, which also allows airlines to accept Apple Pay, but they also have a very strong offering in terms of alternative payments as well.
Okay, so so you got the WeChat Pay, Apple Pay. So I mean, it's almost as if any form of payment that we might use on Amazon or eBay is now part of the airline conversation. I mean, what are the challenges that have you faced? I mean, is it a sort of technical integration challenge, or a sort of commercial challenge, or even regulatory challenges?
Sure.
I mean, what are the headwinds, if you excuse the pun, in a conversation about airlines around alternative payments?
Yes, I think it's a little bit of everything. I think what we do at UATP is help them tackle that first point, which is the technical challenges, and it goes back to what I was saying before, that we essentially allow airlines to use our rails, which are already existing, already proven, already processing billions of dollars, to quickly and easily deploy alternative payments through, again, those relationships and connections that we can establish for them quite quickly. And that has obviously very nice implications for the airline, because time to market is lessened, and the ability to be nimble with respect to payment strategy for an airline is one of the benefits of a partnership with us. But from I think a prioritization standpoint, that really goes back to what we were talking about before, in terms of more of the consultative approach that we take, in terms of doing analysis of relevant forms of payment in a given market, and then approaching our airline merchant partners with suggestions on what might move the needle for them from a revenue standpoint.
Okay, and then we've gone around the globe, and now just sort of looping back very specifically to North America, and even more specifically to San Diego and GBTA.
Sure.
I mean, what sort of conversations have you been maybe having this year that you weren't having last year?
I think the travel agency issuer initiative, as you can imagine, is creating a lot of buzz, just because there are a lot of travel management companies and OTAs that have significant amounts of business at US point of sale that are exploring UATP solutions and offerings from an issuing standpoint. And that's a conversation that we weren't able to have last year, which obviously is very interesting for us. Then I think secondly, it's this whole notion of the rapid proliferation of technology, particularly blockchain, and how that is poised to revolutionize payments, revolutionize travel procurement, and just the industry in general. And so there's a conversation amongst, as you can imagine, travel buyers and suppliers in terms of what the new lay of the land will be once those technologies become more standard and ubiquitous.
Okay, I mean, so blockchain, I'm quite surprised that I haven't talked about blockchain through this run, but presumably it's something that as a big payment provider, you're looking at blockchain, but are you still just sort of looking at it, proof of concept, working on use cases rather than live implementation?
Exactly. So by no stretch is are we kind of ready for prime time with anything related to that? And I think the verdict is still out in terms of ultimately how the technology conversation evolves. But you're absolutely correct. I mean, we and every other credit card network, every other major financial institution in the world has a kind of a keen eye and is monitoring what is happening with blockchain because it does present, I guess, from a high level, some very important efficiencies potentially and some opportunities there. So we are exploring and looking at it, and I think every payment network and financial institution in the world is.
Okay, so maybe if we do this next year, we can be a bit more concrete on
perhaps,
or maybe
I'm non-committal on that, as you can imagine.
3 or 5 years down the line. All right, well, great. Thanks very much, David.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay, well, tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. We'll be back shortly. Thanks very much. Hi everybody, welcome back to tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. I'm Martin Cowan, Editorial Director for tNews. Next up, I've got Charles from Group Eyes, who's got quite a difficult to pronounce surname. So Charles, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
And then when you've introduced yourself, introduce Group Eyes to a tNews audience who may not know what it is that you do.
Great. So I'm Charles de Gaspé-Beaubien. I'm the CEO of Group Eyes. And we're a SaaS platform for corporations to manage their simple meetings and events.
Okay, simple meetings and events. So not GBTA scale, or what do you mean by simple meetings?
Yeah, so typically the meetings that are done by your executive admins, your training department, not by your professional meeting planners. So 30, 50 people would be the average. We do meetings up to 1,500 we've seen, but they're still simple. People still all go to the same hotel, follow the same agenda. If it starts getting too complex, then you really need a lot of sort of labor professionals. But for these simple meetings, you can automate them. People can do them online as long as you have the right visibility, the right controls. So it's kind of like the concept of a concur for meetings. You can trust your admins to do the things and the tools. If it gets more complex, then they'll need some additional support.
I mean, so how big is the addressable market, I think is the phrase, for simple meetings? And,
So it's 60 to 80% of the meetings in a corporation. It's 50% of their meeting spend, and it's really rogue. It's done, by admins on the phone, booking stuff, that people aren't aware of. So it's probably the largest area of unmanaged spend in a corporation.
And is it still sort of relatively fragmented? And is it still quite a lot of it still done offline?
All of it is done offline. Technologies are just starting to emerge like us. And now that the technologies are there, the corporations are ready to focus on it.
Okay, so what is it that you actually do? You sort of just automate the entire process for a meetings for an admin assistant or somebody that's got to arrange a 50, 60 meeting?
Yeah, so we're a simple tool to use, but there's a lot of technology. There's moving parts in organizing a meeting, from shopping, booking it, creating the registration website, attendee management, booking your air, the attendee app. So we do the whole sort of life cycle of a simple meeting in one tool.
Okay, so to what extent are you then dependent on the hotels having the tech in their back end that you can connect to?
Yeah, so we connect to the hotels for the multi-room booking engine that we have, but as soon as it becomes a meeting or a larger group, it's done through our eBids process. Hotels don't have the technology in place where you can book in real time. It's kind of maybe the holy grail. They're starting to invest in these tools. Realistically, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to start seeing some instant booking of hotels at the major chains, but it's not there. So the industry's not dependent on it yet.
Okay, so it's interesting, because one thing I was interested in asking you was, as the hotels generally become more tech savvy, I mean, is that an opportunity for you in that it's easier to connect to their back end, or is it also a threat? Because, as you said, there might be more direct bookings coming from the hotel chain. So I'm just wondering, in the sort of the medium term, how you see those challenges
I think
playing out.
It's an opportunity. Our customers are the corporations that need to get a handle on all their meetings across all chains. So they need a tool that works with everybody. And then, the ability to book in real time only applies to the small meetings. There's only a certain category meetings that can be booked on time, fully online. There's still a lot of other, the vast majority of them need different interactions to book them. So it's going to come, but it's not the holy grail.
So within that sort of simple meetings thing, I'm just sort of thinking, do you have ways to book the AV equipment, the sales of the catering side of stuff?
So we have ways to request it. And that's how it works. We automate the transaction, via our eBids process, but nobody has the way to book it online, and book it online easily. Even if they can automate it, there's only so much you can automate without making it too complex.
Okay, so I mean, where is your sort of market? I mean, presumably North America, because you're here at GBTA, but I mean, are you globally active, or?
So our content is global. We have 150,000 hotels in this system, but we're focused mostly on North America. Our TMCs, our corporations that we work with, are mostly North American based, and natural evolution will grow more into Europe in the future years.
So at GBTA, what sort of conversations have you been having with the market that you maybe weren't having a year ago?
It's the topic's elevated. We've been evangelizing it for 3 years now, and it seems we can tell just by the BCD involvement in simple meetings and working with us. It's becoming really top of mind. People have been able to ignore this huge area of spend because there was no solutions available. But now it's sort of the last thing that they need to focus on and automate, and it's becoming a priority for many people. I was talking to somebody at BCD that, 4 out of 5 meetings yesterday were about simple meetings. So.
Okay, so you said it's sort of that the whole concept of sort of the simple meetings tech industry has sort of come to the fore over the past couple of months or years maybe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is it that GroupEyes does that other peers and competitors can't do? I'm just wondering what the USP that you think that you bring.
Yeah, so others focus on small meetings, the ones that maybe could eventually be fully automated, a smaller segment. We focus on 60 to 80% of the meetings, and we have an end-to-end platform. So we probably have 3-4 times the technologies that others have. So, like integrations to Concur, integrations to the GDS. There's a lot of moving parts in the industry that you got to check the boxes if you're going to be a relevant tool. And that's our big differentiator versus our competitors.
Okay, and so to what extent do you develop your own technology? I mean, how much of it is proprietary?
It's all ours. We've been developing all our technology for the last 5 years.
Okay.
And then we have to integrate to the hotel system, the GDS, the duty care system, the Concur, the BI tools. So it's a big platform.
And is that more sophisticated than just connecting APIs? I mean, is there stuff that you're actually building?
Absolutely. It's probably the equivalent of 5 systems in one that we had to build.
Okay.
There's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of different tools that you need to use. Although they're simple, it's a challenging
and then you
tech
have to
stack.
presumably you have to sort of integrate them all into one simple dashboard.
That's exactly what we do. And if you're going to be working with executive admins, people that's not their full-time job, more occasional planners, you got to have more sort of consumer-like tools, easy to use, no training. So that's part of our challenge. We take a complex process and we got to make it easy. Okay,
so the future of GroupEyes, where do you see this going? Is this sort of just scaling your existing client base, or are you looking to
really
move
in its infancy. So we work with the vast majority of the TMCs, and they're just starting to introduce this to their clients. Corporations are early adopters. But the future of GroupEyes, I hope that it becomes synonymous as Concur meetings. If you have Concur or an OBT, you need a sort of an OBT for your meetings, and I think every corporation will have it.
Okay, well that's great. I mean, thanks very much for taking the time. I know you've had a busy couple of days here at GBTA, so thanks for sparing 10 minutes. And
thanks for BCD also.
Yeah, thanks for BCD for supporting with us. Okay, so this is Martin Cowan, Editorial Director for tNews. We'll be back shortly. Thanks very much.
All over for work, and when I see an opportunity for some me time, I grab it. Like next week, I'm going to LA for a conference Wednesday through Friday, but Saturday's mine. I'm going to use TripSource to book my hotel near the convention center and the beach, so I can catch some tasty waves after the conference. TripSource lets me find and book a hotel that makes me and my company happy. I can filter my search by neighborhood or amenities that are important to me, and it gives me directions right to the hotel. Nice. If I have any doubts about my company's policy, I'm able to access a copy of it on TripSource. I don't want to ruin a good thing by breaking the rules. I can also add outside events to my itinerary, like my golf meeting with Bill, or my surf lesson with Jessica. I'll mark those as private. Now everything's in one place. Man, I love traveling for work. This is how business travel should be.
Hi everybody, welcome back to tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. I'm Martin Cowing, Editorial Director for T-News. I'm here with Daniel Ramamurthy. Ramamurthy, is that correct?
It's close, which is why I go by Dan Ram. It's much easier.
Dan Ram, okay, Dan Ram, who's here with a business called Sanctify.
Correct, yeah.
So maybe just explain to our viewership what Sanctify is and why you're here at GBTA.
Sure, I flew 33 hours to be here. 3 flights. Committed. But all those layovers are awful. That early check-in, that late departure, awful. Just now I dropped my friend off at the airport. She had a 2-hour delay. Everyone suffers from this all the time. 500 million passengers traveling every year, and they don't have perfect trips. That's what we're here for. We're trying to make that travel experience better. So instead of just sitting in a lounge to drink, eat, and just sit, and then get on a plane to just drink, eat, and sit, we are providing access to gyms, pools, spas, all in the airport and a 5-mile radius. So click of a button on the phone, and instead of sitting and being bored or complaining, do something good for yourself.
Okay, so the idea is that, so I've got a 4-hour layover. There's a hotel on site with a spa and a gym, and I go to Sanctify and book it. Okay.
Exactly. So you don't need a reward system with an airlines for a specific lounge or anything of that sort. Use ours. We're neutral. We work with everyone at 90 airports around the world, and hopefully we're aiming for 150 by the end of the year. Okay. And so it's just the one portal for all your travel wellness.
So do you then sort of source the inventory direct from the hotel reservation systems? And if so, I mean, how do you then, how is that connection made between Sanctify on my phone and the operations in the hotel?
So there's a couple different ways that we do it. One, our founder, Carl, absolutely loves the travel business, and our leadership, they've got over 150 years of travel experience between them. So we've got a lot of good direct connections with hotels and with other partners that are in the airport that are able to deliver on these services. We're also very fortunate to work with fantastic travel bloggers and vloggers whose passion is to travel and see what is the best. And so we aggregate everything, not just what the hotels have, but we also aggregate, like, where's the yoga room at an airport, or what's the best meal to have? And there's all kind of surprises, like San Francisco airport, not many people know there's a beautiful museum dedicated to how the outfits of pilots and air hostesses and all of those have evolved over the last 35 years. At Heathrow Airport, there's golf that can be played. Like, there's all these interesting things that our vloggers and bloggers travel and explore, and they put it together. So really what we want to do is find all the travel wellness in and around an airport, some of those delivered by hotels, some from others, and then our commitment is to the flyer. And so 40% of our options not even monetized by us. We're just the portal for everything to do with travel wellness, and in some of it, we work with the hotel, we make some money, they make some money, and it's fantastic. But really, our commitment is to the frequent flyer.
Okay, so I mean, you're here at GBTA, so clearly you've got a sort of connection with the corporate travel community. I mean, how do you work with? Do you work with travel management community, the travel management companies, or the hotels?
Ours is a B2B model. So even though we cater to everyone who's got an Airbnb but wants to enhance it with a gym access, or someone who's bored in an airport and just wants a little bit of a spa treatment, so we're pretty wide. We're not just for the gym crowd. But our model is actually enterprise model. So currently, for example, our clients, Google and Founders Card, it's to their staff for frequent flying. So that's one side of our market. Our second side of the market is to people like Vodafone and O2 that want to reward their high-paying or premium customers, which also excites the hotels because we're bringing them really good premium customers, business travelers to their hotel. That brings us then to the hotels. They're able to earn some non-room revenue. So that's the secret sauce for us, is we give access to the gyms and pools, and they don't have to book a room. So it's nice for these hotels that have these beautiful assets to actually have it used by the kind of clients they want to attract, and that's what we're bringing. And then we've got the travel agents that you mentioned that are obligated to provide great experiences for all of their clients, and travel wellness is growing tremendously, which is why I think we were selected to be here. That part of the travel industry, the travel wellness section, is growing. And so travel agents are actively looking at what are those options. And currently most people think it's a lounge. And what we're trying to say is, sure, lounge is good, but you can actually do things that are good for your mind and body. And I'm not convinced, as someone who frequents lounges, that I think it's a great place to work, it's not necessarily rejuvenating or refueling. And that's the stuff that we bring. So those are our target markets. Those are the kind of enterprises that we are here at GBTA to connect with, those four categories.
That's really quite an interesting business model. So on the one hand, you have got this sort of commercial relationship with hotels. You bring them additional revenue from non-rooms, which is great, and there's a money flow as a part of that. But then it also looks like you've got a whole, almost like a sort of content travel advisory thing that you don't necessarily making money, but you're giving as a service to people. So I mean, is there a sort of consumer-facing side to Sanctify as well?
I mean, we're active on social media, just like any company needs to be these days. And so we do have people who just love the photos of the testimonials come in, right? So people go, we had a guy last week who, from Northern Ireland, not too far from the two of us, and who had to travel to MIT to lecture. And on the way back, kind of like me pulling in my suitcase in this morning, which is parked outside, he had an early checkout, and then he had a late flight. So what do you do in the middle? And so he got onto the Sanctify app, and he went to a lovely hotel, and went in and used, with our passes, he had access to a free swim, and then he also saw there was really nice spa treatment, so he got himself a little bit of spa treatment. The hotel came back to us going, this is amazing, never knew about this guy, and he's signed up with their loyalty scheme. The guy was like, this is amazing, I had 8 hours to kill, it was raining in Boston, and this was absolutely what I needed after lecturing at the university. So we get, and then we posted that, and off of that, there are people that relate with him that said, hey, can we sign up too? So we do that, but our real focus is to the businesses, because our back-end dashboard can onboard 5,000 employees, 7,000 customers like that. And so that's where we see the real magic, and that's where we see the real value add. But that said, bloggers, vloggers, anyone who's frequent flyers like myself, which is how I got involved with Sanctify, was just Googling on board, what do I do at an airport? Sanctify comes up, and I personally wrote into Carl, and Carl's like, of course, let me connect you. So we do that, but the B2B model is where the real magic is for us.
Okay, and so the connection with the hotel, I mean there's a lot of things about Sanctify that seem to be connecting with other things. So with the hotels, there's almost like a cross-sell, upsell opportunity for somebody that wouldn't necessarily book a room, might see the spa and think, okay, next time I'm here, I'll book the room. So that's one way of sort of getting the revenue through. I mean, where else is the revenue? Is it just this sort of connection with the hotels, or where else do you generate your revenue from?
Well, it's mostly with the corporate partners, with the travel agents, and with large companies that have an obligation as part of their duty of care to their employees to make sure that they're able to perform at their best. And the only way to do that is make sure that travel experience is quality. And so all of these guys, when they connect with us, we've got 4 subscription models. And so they look through it and go, okay, our tier 1 are flying every second week. So they need at least 2 to 4 passes a month. Our tier 2 are flying once a month, so they need 1 pass a month. Our tier 3 flyers are going once every couple of months. So, and then accordingly, we lock them into a subscription model. They bulk buy those, and that's where we get our revenue in. And then they disseminate among their staff, their clients, whoever they want to reward. And that's, so our revenue stream's actually before the person uses it.
That's interesting. I mean, one of the things I was going to ask and just sort of mention was there's been so much talk around wellness. Yeah. You know, people I've been interviewing just look around the halls, look around the education, so things like wellness's time has come. Does that mean that Sanctify's time has come?
I sure hope so. I hope you're a prophet, and that right here, Prophet Martin, you are predicting. No, we've seen good growth. You know, it's a startup. It's based in Ireland with a global mission. And that's tough because the travel industry, as you can see, is massive. I mean, these guys talking the billions, and we're a startup that's working.
You said you're at 90 airports. I mean, there's more than that airports in China alone. So, how many airports are there globally?
I should know this, but I don't.
No, so should I. Neither should I.
But yeah, I mean, I think for our team, for our resources, and for the fact that we're a startup, very proud of our. Mostly how people are responding to it. You know, like if you have 20,000 people on board that are not using it, that's pointless to us. What we're enjoying is hearing the feedback from them and then crafting, and this is where we have our growth is, you know, we getting people saying, this is fantastic to have an aggregated list. How do we get a customized, personalized one? And then we're going, great, AI. AI's time is also here. So how do we integrate artificial intelligence with us? We've got people doing more and more Airbnb, even on corporate money. And so they're saying, oh, we want all the perks of the hotel, but we want to stay in the Airbnb to get the local flavor. And we're going, okay, so how do we give you access to the oh, our model already allows that, so let's just expand from our airport hotel offerings to the city center. And that's not difficult because we work with the Hiltons, we work with the Marriotts, so all we do is expand into that chain. And so we're listening to our customers, and that's really what's exciting. And that's what we're proud of as a startup, that our customers that are using it are loving it. The 90 airports is great, but like I said, we're on a mission for 150.
Yep.
And we have hundreds of location partners right now, not just the hotels, but others that are delivering on the massages and the spas and the relaxation, the sleeper pods and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of work. It's a lot of personal connections, which is why an opportunity like this is fantastic, because I'm hoping there's someone there on the other side that is watching and going, oh yeah, I've got clients who could use this, or I've got access to a facility that needs premium customers.
I mean, one of the things that we talk about a lot on T-News, because the industry talks a lot about it, is the end-to-end journey. And if there's a massive gap in the middle of that journey, which is 4 hours stuck at Heathrow with nothing to do, Sanctify can
and
fill
most
that
people
gap.
have neglected it because it seems impossible. And that's exactly where we're in. And so if you go to our blogs, you have the 1 hour option, the 4 hour option, the 9 hour option, where you say, depending on how long you're there, we've given a list of really cool things to do. And it's not even 4 hours. I spent 3 days in Heathrow. Do you remember the snow that happened about 8 or 9 years ago?
Yeah.
Yep, that was me in there for 3 days.
Wow.
Sanctify would have been great then.
But it wasn't around. Okay, well listen, Dan Ram, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great, interesting little business. It seems to be connecting lots of dots, so excellent. Okay, right, Martin Cowan, Editorial Director for T-News, just signing off. I'll be back shortly.
I'm definitely organized. I keep a tight schedule and a lot of notes. Color coding, I love it. But when I travel for work, I use TripSource. My BCD travel reservations sync automatically into a single organized trip folder in chronological order. All of my trip details are in one place, and they even sync to my phone's calendar. I love it! TripSource sends me reminders before and during my trip, when to check in for my flight, where to park at the airport, my daily meal allowance. Instead of keeping all that up here, I get it all here. Super organized. What about the stuff I can't control? Is my flight delayed? Has my gate changed? I'm the first to know, thanks to TripSource. It's like having a personal assistant who's just as organized as I am. This is how business travel should be.
Hi everybody, welcome back to tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. I'm Martin Cowan, Editorial Director for tNews. I'm going to be talking to Jonathan Savage, who's Chief Commercial Officer of Route Happy by ATP Co.
Yes, good morning, Martin.
Thanks for joining us. So
My
Route
pleasure.
Happy by ATP Co, that's the official branding after the acquisition of Route Happy by ATP Co. So maybe
Yes.
just sort of explain how the business has sort of changed since you became part of ATP Co.
In a lot of ways, everything has changed and not much has changed. So ATP Co acquired Route Happy in February of this year, so we've been at it now for a good 6 months. Really what the acquisition has brought for us and the industry is now a kind of definitive industry source for rich content, which air travel has desperately needed for so long. So it's kind of settled the question of how you provide an omni-channel solution for rich content. So now that we're acquired, we're serving both airlines and distributors and finding ways to get all this varied content in front of shoppers.
Okay, so maybe I should have asked you to maybe explain what Route Happy did initially. So you're a rich content provider for airlines.
Yes, we provide data and services for airlines and distributors. So everything about what you're going to get for a given fare on a given flight. So easy to understand comparative attributes for what are the benefits and restrictions of the fare. Clear information about what the onboard experience would be like. Is there going to be Wi-Fi? Do I need to charge my laptop before the flight? Will there be food? Do I have to pay for it? Easy to understand information. And of course, richer media, so targeted photos and videos, the actual seat on the actual cabin on the actual aircraft. And of course, lounges and all those related services.
Okay.
And it really is just bringing all this information that we're used to getting and everything else we purchase online into flight shopping.
Okay, so you could be described as one of the early adopters of rich content, and rich content now with sort of NDC and other sort of initiatives is now more mainstream. I mean, so what do you think has significantly changed in the sort of rich content market? Is it just like the availability of the content for you to distribute, or is it sort of more sophisticated than that?
I think it's a combination of things. When we first started this, there was this whole chicken and egg concept where distributors weren't ready to consume the content until all the airlines were on board with the content. The airlines weren't ready to participate until all the distributors actually had integrations live. We've really moved beyond that now, where the plumbing is all there. There's NDC, there's our APIs, there's GDS distribution, there's sort of all these ways to get content out there. And we move now to the point where it's what are the right use cases? How do I get relevant information for corporate travelers as compared to leisure travelers, and really make it granular and specific enough so that it performs how it needs to perform regardless of which channel it's
Okay, it's interesting that you've made a distinction there between what might be relevant for a corporate traveller and what might be relevant for a leisure traveller. I'm just thinking in terms of, presumably you do sort of analytics. I mean, what is it that the corporate travellers in particular are looking for in terms of the rich content?
Well, so what we know in the corporate space is, it's hard to provide a consistent experience for the corporate traveler. They often have multiple windows open. They have a booking tool. They have their own policy. They're looking at other sites to see, what seat, what flight, And right now, in the corporate space, we have several new integrations where all of that information can be provided in a corporate booking tool. You could see again, the picture of the meal, the picture of the seats. You can understand, for a specific negotiated fare, do you have lounge access? Is there some other perk as part of your contract? All that information is now flowing directly through these corporate tools, which was not the case, as recently as 9 months ago.
Okay, so I mean, do you do any B2C stuff, or is it all sort of B2B?
Everything we do is B2B. Okay. Route Happy was initially conceived as a B2C company, and when we really sort of dug into the heart of the problem, and there was just such inconsistent data and lack of purpose-built solutions, both for airlines and distributors, we realized we were onto something and found a way to make these tools available for everyone. So we certainly started in the leisure space with the likes of Google and Expedia and others. and now, of course, but before the acquisition and really, of course, accelerated after the acquisition, are now delivering in all channels. So including airline.com, by the way, and of course, corporates and leisures.
Okay, so at GBTA, I mean, what's the tone of the conversation you're having? I mean, presumably everybody now knows about Routes Happy by ATP Co. I mean, so how do you take that conversation forward?
Yeah, I think what's been fantastic about this conference is we've gone beyond sort of the what is rich content. You know, a year ago, such a simple term seemed to be, you know, quite vague. But now people really understand that it's about setting expectations and knowing exactly what you're going to get in the fare and on the flight. So the conversation now is really about how am I going to get it in my channel? How do I get the very specific negotiated fares, the branded fares, the chauffeur drive by one airline versus the lounge access on another airline? How do I get to these really specific use cases and make that available for corporate travelers? So we're at a far more concrete set of discussions now than we were a year ago.
Okay, so presumably you're taking the fees from the GDSs and the airlines. I mean, how much sort of proprietary technology have you had to develop to almost to integrate the integrations?
Yeah, there's quite a bit. I mean, the great thing about the acquisition now is we're of course plugged directly into ATPCO, so we can get the fare information from its source. We translate that, we localize that into digestible attributes, so you can really do comparison filters, not only across carriers but for negotiated fares and corporate fares. So that information is far more usable and consumer friendly than it's ever been. That's number one. Number two, also now that we're plugged into ATPCO, we can help airlines perform gap analysis and comparative tools so they can figure out exactly how they can optimize and get this content more available for corporate travelers. And the other use cases, the things that have really accelerated, of course, are expanding all the data sets. Airlines are investing more in their products now than they ever have. They're premium alcohol, premium coffees, lounge renovations, and it's creating a lot of excitement and buzz even for travelers because they have a lot more options than they've ever had. So as they get this information, it's driving more sophistication in making that available.
I mean, is there any, I'm just trying to think about the main themes that I've picked up from GBTA. I mean, sort of like wellness is one theme. So I mean, is that a sort of peripheral part of what you do, or is there a sort of almost like people are looking at the seats and they want to know exactly what the seat pitch is?
It's both, and that's a perfect example. So as people are getting, aircrafts are flying longer and longer distances, right? So being able to know that you can get a proper night's sleep, and then you can live the next morning and take a shower and have a lounge experience, and then get on to your meeting. All of that is really articulated through rich content. So another part of what we do is not just getting the data, but it's working with airlines to articulate that. So we've had use cases in the last several months where we're attending photo shoots with airlines and say, take this picture, take that one, target it in a specific way. So it's really becoming far more about retailing and merchandising than it is just data feed from point A to point B.
Okay, so it's almost like a sort of consultancy approach that you work
or
with
like an
airlines.
Agency service, yeah. Sure.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. And the growth profile for the business? I mean, where does the growth come from? Is it just getting more airlines into the system with more rich content, or is there anything else?
It's both on the airline side, so we're making it very easy for airlines to sign up. So we've increased our airline content availability. We're now well over 100 airlines for UTAs and UPAs. We've got almost 300 now for amenities. On the distributor side, we've signed up 12 new distributors since the acquisition. So it's really just continuing to get this content out there everywhere it needs to be. And again, making sure the new connections that airlines have, so whether it's NDC or whether it's our API or whether it's a flat data transfer, data needs to move regardless of the pipe, and so continuing to build out those connections is a big part of our focus.
Okay, well, Jonathan, thanks very much for taking the time to join us. I'm
Your
sure
pleasure.
you've got sort of business to do on the stand, but okay, well, Martin Cowan, Editorial Director for tnews, just signing off shortly, but I'll be back. Thanks very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
I'm on the road at least 3 days a week, but you don't win Salesman of the Year 5 times in a row by sitting in the office pushing papers around. And speaking of paper, frequent travel generates a lot of it. Who has time to organize, scan, file, and submit all of this? Not me. So now, I use TripSource to manage every detail of my trip, and this has just gone away. Everything is in here, even my past trips. It's all with me all of the time. TripSource has really made this guy's life easier. I can also set up TripSource to share my trip details for me, which means Alex here knows where I am in case someone needs to get in touch with the Salesman of the Year. Am I right? This is how business travel should be.
Hi everybody, welcome back to tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. I'm Martin Cowan, Editorial Director for T-News. I'm here with Dr. Sasha Meskendahl, who's the Chief Revenue Officer for Blacklane, fairly well-known operator in ground transportation business, chauffeur-driven, I understand. So, Sasha, you've had a busy couple of days here, a couple of announcements that I'd like to talk to you about, but just tell me, what it is that you've announced here at GBTA.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to talk about what we announced here. So we had like two major announcements.
Okay.
The one was since 2 days we officially announced or officially launched our Blacklane PaaS service. PaaS stands for Premium Airport Services and Solutions, and it's an airport concierge service. So makes you as efficient as possible to get through the airport. And the second biggest announcement that we have is our new green class that we soft launched before, and it's also live since last week, where we have a fleet of electrical vehicles currently in 20 cities in 13 countries around the world, and are rolling this out further.
Okay, so let's look at PaaS, Premium Airport Services. I mean, so that's from getting off the plane through security. I mean, what was the driver behind that? If that's the driver.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we prefer to say chauffeur.
The chauffeur. So what was? So I mean, was that did you see a big demand from premium clients for that, or is it sort of wider
Actually,
than that?
it was a bit the other way around. So we had like the feedback that we got, and what we have, like you can have a great business class, first class flight to your destination. You have a great Blacklane ride from the airport to your hotel to your home. But actually, where you're left alone is at the airport, and the airport is a big pain point. And we were looking at like the whole customer journey, and our mission is to offer a seamless door-to-door experience. So that's what we are targeting for. And then we figured out like the airport is one of the biggest pain points. How can we actually solve that you don't lose that kind of premium experience that you have from your flight and your Blacklane ride? And then we're looking into that, how we can offer this kind of service. We were doing a pilot last year, gave it for free to some of our customers, and then collected the feedback. And the feedback was so great that we said, like, let's productize it. We worked at that time with a company called Solve from the US that was offering it at some airports, and then they stopped their business. And then we reached out to them, and it's like, oh, we have a lot of demand for that, and why did you stop the business? And then the feedback was, it's very tough, it's challenging customers, it's a lot of local, maybe unreliable suppliers, it's too much work for us. And we figured out, so like, too much work, like high demand customers, a lot of suppliers around. It's exactly what we at Blacklane do, and what we have done with the chauffeur service. Having a fragmented market, not easy to book, very high price, and actually made this service available around the world and easy to book and brought down heavily the prices. And this is now what we do with PaaS, doing the same. So we now offer that service for $100 US per service. So this is the arrival service, what you described earlier. It's also the departure service. So you arrive with a Blacklane ride, you would be picked up curbside, helping with check-in, helping with security, passing security lines. You still need to go through security, of course, but then either putting you directly into a lounge that you can also book with us, or bringing you directly to the gate and placing you directly into the.
So you've had to work closely with airport providers in order to do this?
Yes, so there are actually providers at each airport, but it's like a fragmented market, so you don't know what the provider is, and it's typically high cost. If you take Moscow, that kind of service costs you $800. Or used to cost you $800. Now with Blacklane, it costs you $100. The reason is it's so. It's such expensive service that it used to be a niche, and that only C-suite would actually book this and would be willing to pay for that. And then you only have a couple of people using it per week, and then you have high costs because with the typical model with the airport is you have to buy one license, and if you do it for one person to 2 or 20, it's the same price. And this is why we do the same approach what we do with the chauffeur service, like bringing in more customers, helping these high quality providers that we have around the world at the airports, better utilizing their capacities, and then bring down the price and make this service available to all business travelers or to all travelers out there. So time is not only valuable for C-level executive. I think it's valuable for everyone, and it's affordable and can save you 2-3 hours.
Okay, so it's sort of like economies of scale, basically, on a very simple level. Okay, so let's move on to the green initiative. So you say that's electric vehicles in 20 cities. Again, what was the thinking behind launching this? Was this something that Black Lane brought to the market and said this is something you should be looking at, or was it more the market came to Black Lane and said we want this? I'm just wondering where the impetus for this initiative came from.
I mean, what we are really proud of, actually, it came within the organization. So we have internally founded by employees of Black Lane something what we call Black Lane Cares. So it started with offering our service and making our service more accessible for people with disabilities, but also it was like, how can we be responsible to the environment? So this is then where this green initiative started within the company, really from employees within Black Lane, not by the CEO, not by me, not actually by customers asking for that, but it's like, how can we make that a better place, and how can we contribute to that as Black Lane? And since last year, we are carbon neutral, so that was the first starting point, is like we are offsetting the entire carbon emission of our fleet globally with an official institute. We are certified for that. It's based on the actual fuel consumption of the fleet, not of any theoretical values from car manufacturers. So we are carbon neutral since last year with all our rights. We are since this year actually carbon neutral with all our operations. So we are also offsetting our traveling coming here to GBTA, but also with our office and everything that we have there. And then the next logical step was actually like, how do we further develop that and we don't emit anything in terms of carbon, but also like other kinds of things that you emit with combustion engine. And this is why we then said, like, let's go the next step and launch a service which is the electrical fleet. We do it currently with Tesla Model X and Tesla Model S. It comes with all the same service levels that Black Lane offers, like free waiting time, international English-speaking driver, with all the technology and all this pickup service at the airport that we offer across all our services already before. And we want to roll it out further. The limitation there is about the cars. And you need to have cars that you can use for chauffeur service, right?
Okay, so you're live in 20 cities. I mean, are they sort of mainly North America, or where are they spread?
No, it's in 13 countries. 13 it's all countries around the world. So it's North America, it's Europe, it's in the Asia-Pacific region. So we picked several markets from small to big. So in the US is, for example, one Austin, but we also have London, we do Paris, we do Munich, and then Sydney, for example. And we want to start it with offering it as broad as possible, because our guests are traveling internationally, and we want to make the service as soon as possible available on a global level, and also get the feedback on a global level. And of course, also affected is where you can offer that kind of service. Where do you have the cars in the market, and where can you convince the partners in the market also to invest into the vehicles, and where they are also you have the legislation that allows for that. So it's not all cars are allowed all around the world, so there's some limitations to that.
Okay, so I mean, is that green initiative? You said you sort of just announced it, and you soft launched it earlier. I mean, is it live now?
It is live now. Okay. It is live. Go to blacklane.com and then you can book it. It's available. So it's with our 3 service classes we had before: business class, a business van, and first class. And there's a 4th class now, which is our green class. Okay, and just in terms of the conversations you've had at GBTA, I mean, what's been the response to green and pass? So the feedback overall is very, very good for both of that. I think we even got, let's say, from the media, we got more attention on the green initiative. Yeah. So if we look at coverage, who published it, it was like green was more published. From the feedback on the ground, even a bit more, I would say, on the pass service. They're like, okay, it's really pain point for us. I can envision a lot of people for us using that. If we can save them time, make travel for them easier. That's a good thing, and we would love to test it. So I would say it's a mixed. Okay. So with Pass and Green, I mean, what else is on your radar in terms of sort of new to market initiatives? So we of course strengthen what we have. I mean, with Pass we are already available at 500 airports. It's the Pass service, which is also the lounge access. With the green class, as I said earlier, it's 20 cities. We want to roll that out further, but also like our, let's say standard product. I mean, we want to be, or will be available in then more than 300 cities at the end of the year. So we want to increase our coverage and make it as easy as possible for customers to book it, to travel really seamless. And we strongly believe that service level is something to add to that. I mean, we are quite often invited to the future of mobility and what happens to black lane if you have self-driving vehicles. And now with the pass direction we are going, that question is like becoming less. And it's like, okay, yeah, understood, you're offering a service level. I mean, the car can be self-driven. Still, you need to have someone helping you with getting into the car, getting through the airport, helping you maybe at home. And people still appreciate the service that a person can give you. So that if we look at our customer feedback, the best customer feedback we get is for our chauffeur. So it's like, it was a great chauffeur. He came in, he helped us to get through the airport, although the doors were closed, or I forgot my wallet, and he came back giving me the wallet. So I mean, it's like the chauffeurs, which we consider part of the Black Lane family, part of the Black Lane crew. They make really a difference there. So
I mean, despite the advances in sort of automotive technology, it's still that personal service that you offer.
And the car can be self-driven, right? I mean, for us, I mean, we have customers that want to be driven, so that's not a problem for us. If there's someone in the car or not, I think still people want to decide. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't trust that technology, right? And when we could envision that there's rather you select, do I want to have a driver in there, do I don't want to have a driver in there? But still you need physically help with getting into the car, helping with your luggage, getting through the airport. So I think it will, for us, more going into this service direction. What else of customer pain points can we solve? Also with our pass service. Now we have like getting as efficient as possible through the airport. That's what we had in the soft launch phase. Since last week, like we are officially live, but also added the lounge access to that. But there might be different opportunities at the airport as well, where we can make life easier for travelers and add this kind of services to our chauffeur product and also to our pass product.
Well, I mean, the airport experience is a pain point for many travelers, and I think this pass thing for the C-suite. But what you're saying is that by the economies of scale, it's not just the C-suite; it's the B-suite, if such a thing exists. So, okay.
No, well, as our director of pass says, like nobody enjoys being at the airport except for kids taking pictures of planes, right?
Yeah.
And we want to make that experience much better, that you can also as a traveler make best out of your time. If you want to spend time at the airport, that's fine. But if you want to work at the airport, use that time. We want to give you that ability and not waiting in lines where you don't create any value. And it's then up to the traveler to decide whether he wants to relax or if he wants to work. And I think also companies understand that you can. It's big. I think it's a great tool for retaining talents, making their lives easier when you're traveling. So I used to be a consultant, need to travel all the time. If you can make life easier for travelers, they're more likely staying with your company and not getting tired of traveling. And then still, if you work one more hour, you can create more value to the company, and companies are willing to pay.
But it's interesting as well. One of the themes from GBTA is this whole idea of wellness and this whole idea of like being able to relax at the airport on your layover, or being able to work, having that choice, and then that sort of looping back to sort of retention because the travel experience is better. I mean, it's all starting to come together with sort of Black Lane fairly central to that. So great. Dr. Sascha Meskendahl, thanks very much for taking the time to join us. This is Martin Cowan. This is tnoozLIVE at GBTA, presented by BCD Travel. Thank you very much.
Can you believe they sent a man to the moon with less computing power than this? My phone is always on me and always on. When I travel for work, I use TripSource. I can access it on my phone, tablet, laptop, or smartwatch. TripSource lets me manage my travel how I want to. Check in for my flight with just a couple taps? Check. And if anything happens, like a natural disaster or global emergency, TripSource notifies me right away. That gives me peace of mind. I also get messages from Mission Control at corporate that keep me in company guidelines. Now that is a smartphone. This is how business travel should be.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the wrap-up session for GBTA 2018. We're in the BCD Travel booth, broadcasting with tNews, and this is it. We've done 3 days now, y'all.
Yes.
So we're going to try to wrap up and talk about a few of the things that we saw while we were here for 3 days. I've got Andy Menkes with us. Andy is the SVP of Global Client Services, or Global Client Solutions with BCD Travel. And I've got Amy Dalton here, and she's SVP of the Americas. So I thought I'd start by asking you guys, both of you are talking to a lot of customers, and you're talking to a lot of prospects. And what are you hearing on the streets? What are you hearing from our clients at the booth? What are they telling you?
Oh my gosh. You know what? It's been a great event. So we've heard a lot of great things. I think clients are the big thing that we're kind of been talking to them about is how do we take all of our great innovation and technology and service and put it together, right? One of the themes that we've been hearing, right, quite a bit the last few days is how do I keep all my corporate travelers compliant and in my program, and yet how do I give them all these choices here that's been at the booth,
the
right?
Conundrum.
The conundrum of technology and solutions, and so how do I bring that together, right? So that's really been kind of a theme for me of customers coming up and wanting to see, you know, help me put that together. So that's been really interesting.
How about you, Andy?
Well, from what I've seen, we've had over 7,000 registered attendees here.
Huge.
And for the buyers, I think it's a bit overwhelming in terms of the choices and the options.
That's right.
So we're finding there's more of a reliance on a travel technology expert, such as BCD, to help identify which are the startups that may not make it, which are the ones that have value, and then how do you integrate it into a program and make it successful.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a woman as I was crossing the street coming into the conference this morning, and you can tell, because in San Diego, we're all running around the same area. Everyone's got a big giant name tag on. And I just sort of started talking to her, and she's been coming to GBTA for almost 2 decades, and she said, it reminded me that back in the day at GBTA conferences, the trade show was really card companies, large travel management companies, airlines and hotels and rental cars and chauffeured car transportation. And now it's a whole different scene. You've got tech players, you have innovators, you have startups buying booths, you've got, you know, kind of technology niche players. It's completely changed the complexion, right, of the program and also the trade show floor. And I think that's a little bit of what you were saying, is that it's a little overwhelming. There's so much to see, and how do you even begin? 10 years ago, you would visit a couple online booking tools, right?
Yeah.
And maybe your credit card provider, your TMC, and a couple airlines, test out some seats, and now you're actually looking at technology.
Right.
You're looking at all sorts of different solutions.
Yeah, I had a customer also say the same thing, that they said that they need more time to vet out the trade show. Like, when's the first time in 10 years?
That's right.
People want more time at the trade show, right? To kind of vet it out.
And I've got a couple of decades under my belt of being at GBTA conferences. I would say the difference is back then, the focus was on what prizes and tchotchkes and everything else they could get from the booths. Now buyers are spending their time in the booth looking to learn what's out there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And what did you come to this conference kind of top of mind for you? What are you here personally and professionally to achieve here at this conference?
Gosh, okay, the list is long always. But I think a couple of things. For me, this is the opportunity for me as a commercial owner at BCD to try to see all my customers in one place and be able to try to help them with some of that kind of next generation travel. Meaning, how do we bring it all together, right? How do we bring all this technology? How do we bring service together? How do we bring some of the things that we're talking about in the market space? And I think it's a great opportunity because we've got our leaders here and our senior leaders here.
All of them.
And so we've got our technology experts. So it allows us the opportunity to kind of sit around a table and have great dialogue about how do we bring them forward. And so for me, it's a great place I can do that with all my customers.
And I've been watching you work a little bit in the booth, and it's kind of a nice process watching you kind of welcome the client, give them a hug, sit down, have a nice chat, and then you bring over our president. And then you bring over the CEO, and everyone gets to introduce each other and meet each other and establish that relationship. It's very, very nice to watch. What about you, Andy? What did you come here doing, looking for?
The answer on the personally side was to validate why I made the move over to BCD. It's been 2 months. I've been on the buyer side and on the consultant side.
Right.
And the experience was different because for the first time I stayed in one booth. Instead, although I did get around a little bit on the tram. So the goal for me was to help get the BCD message out to those that know me but may not know BCD that well, and also get to work with my new colleagues, because I've known them from the other side. Now I'm part of the team.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's true. So what do you think is the state of the corporate travel industry, Amy? How would you sum it up right now?
Oh, I think, well, and I think Andy just said it at the beginning. I think there is great optimism and excitement, but I think there's also kind of this fear of, how do I make all of this work, right? What does this mean in terms of all of this technology, right? So how do I make that work in my program, right? And so I think everybody's excited about seeing what the solutions are, but I think everybody's got that kind of fear, a little bit in dread of like, how do I bring that to life for my program? And so as I've talked to customers and been around the booths, I think that's what everybody, as he mentioned in the beginning, I think that's what everybody's kind of struggling with a little bit. So I think that's definitely on the forefront.
What about you?
Well, I sat at the general session where Billie Jean King spoke, and she talked about how challenges are actually opportunities. And I don't know of anyone of the 7,000 that doesn't have a challenge with a travel program, whether they be a buyer or a supplier. So this is a great opportunity for the parties to get together and identify solutions that benefit the traveler, the shareholder, and ultimately those that have to arrange the travel as well, because it's really three constituents.
Yeah.
You know, I'll make my own observation. I was on a panel discussion, right? So, and I do it often enough where I often am talking on a stage and I see a giant audience, right? And I can gauge kind of their body movements and how they react to the things I'm saying. And I see more and more nodding in the audience when I start talking about things like flexibility. Don't hit the ROI button right away. Don't hit the global button right away. And finding ways to make use of pockets of innovation, being brave and taking a chance, right? And that's often, you know, one of the things that we deal with when we work with our customers is we might have a great idea or great innovation, but it works in a single country, a single location, or it's a niche piece, and we want to try to move the industry ahead, but everyone wants to hit that global button, right? So I'm noticing as I'm on these panels now and watching the audience, more and more people are buying into the fact of like, you know, we can capitalize on pockets of innovation. We can take a few more risks.
Absolutely.
And I think that's changed a lot in the last, I don't know, 10 or 8 years.
Yeah, I think Yanis has been telling our technology developer, has been telling clients, just dip your toe in the water, right? So don't boil the ocean, but just try to dip your toe in the water of taking some initial steps, like you said, versus like this big, you know.
Yeah. We don't need to roll it out in 148 countries on day one. Let's just start with one.
Yeah, and I think when you kind of compartmentalize it a little bit and kind of make it in bite size, I think people can kind of get behind that, right? They can go, all right, it's not so scary. I can implement a few things in the digital space and kind of step into it.
But we are in such a mature stage of, you know, the consolidation era, right? Like you look at the late 90s, the early 2000s, all the big corporate consolidated programs finally consolidated, and they're all comfortable now consolidated globally, right? And now we're trying to, again, like a decade later, say, well, why don't we just try something new over here and over there? So it's courage on both parts, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So clients are driving a lot of our changes, right? I mean, they drive a lot of change. So can you talk about how clients are driving change in your world?
Yeah, oh gosh, there's so much change happening, as we talked about, and I think one of the big changes is just how we service customers going forward in terms of where we have employees based, what kind of languages we're speaking, what kind of tools travelers can use to access us, right? So again, gone are the days where it's a matter of, oh, I've either got to pick up the phone or I've got to send an email maybe. It's now, maybe I can chat with you, maybe I can text with you, maybe, you know, I can SMS you some sort of kind of request in. And so I think travel organizations are trying to figure out how to kind of meet that need, right? In terms of how do we interface with those customers? So I think for us is the customers are saying, how do I get them into your channel any way they want to come in? How do I put technology and give them tools and solutions, right? And then they go out with a similar experience across the globe. Very hard, right?
Actually, we were talking to David Coppins, who's EVP of Global Operations yesterday, and he was talking about how, you know, service models are starting to change, and you know, the global virtual contact centers. He said, you know, 10 years ago we used to talk a lot about where are my agents physically,
right?
And the conversation is not about that anymore.
No,
not at all.
It's about how we give the tools for people to come into the channel, right? So you give the traveler the ability to come in any way they want to come in.
Yeah, and along those lines, the expression used to be "follow the sun," which is it was linear based on how the sun was setting.
Yeah.
I like to think that it's now more about follow the customer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Did you just coin a term?
I did.
Okay. Market, internet.
Yeah, patent.
How are clients driving what your world is like? I know you've just been here a couple months, but you've been dedicated to clients your entire career.
The last 17 years, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been a buyer, I've been a supplier. I'd say that the big difference I'm seeing now is a recognition that cost cutting in travel, if it goes too far, will actually negatively impact the bottom line.
That's right.
Because when you start to impact employee productivity, when you make travel uncomfortable, you drive non-compliance, and also you'll have attrition of employees.
Right.
And we've seen studies that the majority of travelers indicated that if they were to switch jobs, it would be because of travel policy. So cost savings makes sense for the shareholders, but if you cut out too much of costs, you're going to impact quality, you're going to impact employee productivity and traveler friction.
That's right.
And so if you take it too far, you may save money next year, but you may lose a good chunk of your best employees.
Yeah.
It's back to that, what we said, it's back to that, how do you give them choice, but keep them compliant, right? It's a big theme here.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Definitely a big theme here.
So, Andy, you were talking to me earlier about attending Reggie Agarwal's session at the general session from Cvent. I actually heard about it from a lot of people. I wasn't around. I was busy running around doing this. But it moved people. So can you tell the audience, like, what was that all about? Why was it so good?
Sure. Well, it moved me too, and I know Reggie, and a lot more people know Cvent.
Yeah.
He gave his background and story, how he borrowed money from his family to start a business, was nearly bankrupt, had $300,000 in credit card debt, almost went bankrupt the second time, but he persevered. And I think there was the proverb that if you fall down 8 times, you get up 9. And he eventually built the company into a very profitable,
huge,
large company because he focused on his employees and his customers.
We obsess about our customers.
Yes.
That's how I like to say it. We obsess about them.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think the future holds for business travel? What do you think we'll be talking about next year when we sit here at GBTA?
Go ahead.
I would say among the major topics are going to be artificial intelligence and bots. And on the other side will be self-directed travel and especially trip disruption.
Talk about self-directed travel. What does that
mean? The ability to control your trip with your thumb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Self-service tools. I think everything's moving self-service. And so how do we, again, give travelers choices of using different tools and technologies and solutions? So I think that's going to continue. I think Andy's right. I think that's going to continue to be the theme.
And I just as a side note, editorial on my part, I hate the word self-service.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it, and I think it reminds me of, the early 2000s when we were all in cost-cutting mode, and we just said, well, why don't we just make our employees do it? We'll give them a self-service tool, and it's cheaper. I feel like we need a new word to describe the concept, as a digital enablement. And I'm also a former consultant, so I talk I talk in good words.
The only self-service that I would consider a good one, as you said it, is I hated standing in line at a bank to get cash. Using an ATM has value.
Yes.
So if it's self-service, that's better than waiting to talk to the next person. There might be some value to it.
A material increase in experience.
Right.
Okay. What does the future hold? Anything new? I asked you what we're going to be talking about next year. You answered. How about you?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think the other thing is, I think we're going to see service models continue to change, right? In terms of how we...
And I've heard that a few times.
Yeah, of how we service our customers in terms of consolidation or non-consolidation, and not worrying so much about, like you said, brick and mortar or where people sit, but about how people have the tools to service you anywhere.
That's right.
So I do think that's going to be relevant.
Yeah, the other idea that comes to mind is I don't think we'll be talking about the TMC anymore, just like we stopped talking about the travel agency and morphed to a TMC. It's going to be a mobility partner that can take all these divergent technologies and processes and somehow vet them, pull them all together to create a seamless user experience. And I see that's a role for BCD.
Yeah.
Any TMC can issue a ticket. It takes a special kind of company to customize a program for a client.
Bingo. Yep. Okay. You got a couple hours left in this conference. What are you looking forward to?
Gosh, you know what? I've seen a lot of clients, so I'm looking forward to kind of packing it up and heading home.
Because we are business travelers.
We
travel a lot.
We're
we have
road
a lot of
warriors.
empathy. We are road warriors.
We are road warriors.
We have a
like
lot of
the rest
empathy
of
for
them.
the folks that we take care of,
Yeah.
right?
So I'm anxious.
So you want to get home?
Yeah, I want to get home and you know, kind
unpack,
of do
your laundry, repack your bag to go on your next trip.
Yeah, kind of refresh, reflect. We got lots of good follow-ups from the last few days and some great actions, and then we start traveling again and get back at it.
I know. My next trip is next week.
Yeah, get back at it.
How about you? What are you looking forward to next couple hours?
This flight will be segment 75 for the year for me. I'm looking forward to making my connection.
75 flights.
75
since
flights.
January.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm looking forward to is following up on all the great contacts, friends, relationships that I've collected cards or made notes on, so that we can continue the momentum. Here's where you meet and re-meet people.
Right.
The real key is how you follow up.
Absolutely.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, but it's been a great conference.
It has.
It's been a really great conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, great backdrop, but great conference also.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a great city.
Yeah, and a great city.
Nice
San
combo,
Diego
nice
is
combo.
prime
Yeah.
for a conference. Okay. Well, that's all we have for today. We really appreciate you joining us. That is the end of GBTA 2018. And we appreciate your time, so thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's Martin Cowan, Editorial Director of T-News, wrapping up the wrap-up. That was a great way to round things off. I'm going to work very hard on the flight back to come up with a different term for self-service.
Self-service, we need a new word.
But I did like the phrase Miriam Pockets of Innovation. I think that's quite a nice idea, a nice way to wrap up what's happening around here. I think there's a partnership ecosystem, which is a phrase that I've developed that I'm going to be working on. I think there's, what I've picked up from GBTA is that there is a lot more partnerships happening, and businesses that might not necessarily have worked with each other 2 or 3 years ago are now finding that, you know, looping into the idea of pockets of innovation, there is ways that businesses can work together to be better individually and collectively, and I think that's one of the things I've picked up from GBTA. And just sat here, it's my first time at GBTA, sat here in the BCD booth, I can see airlines, I can see hotels, I can see tech providers, I can see credit cards. The whole business, corporate travel ecosystem is becoming one, but there does need to be businesses such as BCD Travel that can help you sift it, sort out the noise, and get to what it is that you actually want, which is not unrelated to the whole personalization of travel. We all want what we want, and technology and businesses such as BCD Travel can help do that. So we've been here, this is tnoozLIVE at GBTA. We've been presented by BCD Travel, so thanks very much, BCD Travel, for supporting this.
It's been our pleasure.
Yes.
Thanks very much for everybody who's tuned in, particularly anybody that's not on Pacific time. I admire your commitment to the project. And also thanks to the interviewees. We've talked to 20 plus people from across the business travel ecosystem. So we've had the blue chip tech providers, we've had the nimble startups, we've had representatives from BCD, we've had some expense solution providers, a couple of credit cards, some ground transportation. So yeah, the whole ecosystem has been represented. We're going to be slicing and dicing the interviews. They'll be posted as discrete little clips onto our YouTube channel, so keep an eye on tnews.com for details of how to access them. And yeah, what else can I say? Thanks very much, and yeah, keep an eye on T-News. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.